Good morning, boys and girls. I'm here today to first start with the morning message. And I saw a word yesterday that Mrs. Van Campen used, so I used it again in my greeting. And I also kind of will answer a question that Mrs. Van Campen asked in her morning message yesterday. So let's take a look at the morning message today. It starts out with that Spanish word, that Spanish greeting. And see if you can remember what Mrs. Van Campen said that word was. Hola, hola, and that means hello. So our morning greeting today is hola, hello, with an exclamation point, so we can kind of say that in an excited way to each other. Our second question, oh, nope, not a question. Is there a question mark? Mrs. Lancer made a mistake. Not a question today. This is a statement. This tells us something. And here's what it tells us. It tells us that God made you. God made you. It really should have an exclamation mark because that is an exciting sentence. God made you. And then our last sentence, also not a question because there is no question mark there. And I see 1, 2 repeat words. So we already know what those say. God made. Here's a word we see all the time, the. And then here is a word that we should try to sound out, okay? Water. And then this word is the word cycle. Water cycle. So this last sentence says, God made the water cycle. Let's read the whole message together, friends. Hola, hello. God made you. God made the water cycle. All right. Yesterday, Mrs. Van Campen asked us the question, where does rain come from? And today, we're going to try to answer that question, where does rain come from? We know that God makes the rain and that He makes the water cycle, and I'll help explain that in just a little bit. Before we get started, boys and girls, I think it would be great if we could sing our Be Still and Know song, because this story today really is a story straight from the Bible. It's about how God created the earth, the heavens, the water, and how He keeps that earth going with the water cycle. So let's sing our song today, and if you can kind of pretend that we're sitting in the circle, if you could get to a quiet spot and put your legs in position 1, nice and crisscrossed, your hands in position 2 so that they're not worried or bothered with anything around you, and then your voices and your words nice and quiet so that you can be a great listener. Be still and know that God is here. Be still and know that God is here. Be still and know that God is here. All right, boys and girls, the very first words of the Bible go like this. Maybe you want to close your eyes and just think about these words as I say them. They go like this, Genesis 1, verses 1 and 2. And you know Genesis 1, verses 1. This was one of our Bible memory verses. So close your eyes and let's say, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, the earth was formless and empty. Darkness covered the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. Boys and girls, the waters. That's what we're going to talk about today. The waters that God made at the very beginning of the world, when our world first started, those are the same waters and the only waters that we have now, that we've had for all of these thousands of years. The waters that God made at the beginning. And he keeps those waters cycling around and around, kind of like a wheel, a cycle wheel, and it's called the water cycle. Let's take a look at my diagram I made today about the water cycle. And I am going to tell you lots of very big words today, and I want you to tuck those words up into your memory, because when you get to second and third and fourth grade, you're going to have your teacher, she or he is going to talk to you about these words again. And you might say, oh yeah, that's right. I remember when we had that story of the water cycle. So boys and girls, here are the words. We have that big sunshine. And what the sun does is it has evaporation. Evaporation is when that sun is nice and warm, and it takes all of the water droplets and it brings it up into the clouds, and it's called evaporation. It raises that water right up. Then, boys and girls, we have our clouds over here, and we have this big word. It's called condensation. Condensation is when all of those water droplets form together in a cloud, and they stick tight together. And when they get so full of those water droplets, they start to drop. And they start to let all that water down. If it's cold, that water is snow. If it's warm, the water is raindrops. So that is called condensation. Our next word is what happens when it rains, and that is called precipitation. Precipitation. That is just a big word for rain. So after the clouds gather all those droplets, they come down in precipitation, in rain, and water the earth. And then, boys and girls, they come to all the different collection spots in the world. So this word is collection, and the water collects or gathers together. That's why we have ponds and rivers and oceans and lakes, all of our water gathering together that God made at the beginning of the world. Those are the same drops that he made at the very beginning of the world. So let's take a look one more time at our water cycle. We have evaporation. That's what happens when the sun heats up the water, and that water climbs up, and then the water comes all together in those clouds, and it gets really heavy, so heavy that the cloud can't hold it anymore, and it falls down to the earth in precipitation in the rain, and then it comes over into the streams and rivers and mud puddles and ponds and creeks, and it collects all in a group until it starts again. And that is God's plan for the water cycle. Boys and girls, some of these words that we've been talking about can go along with our water cycle. Here is the word rainy, and that can go along with the precipitation part of our water cycle. Here is our word that we have, cloudy, and that can go along with the condensation part of our water cycle. And here, my favorite word is the word sunny, and that can go along with the evaporation part of our water cycle. So boys and girls, what I would like you to do is I would like you to make your own example of a water cycle. So what we're going to do is, with the help of your mom and dad, get a baggie, a Ziploc baggie, so that you can zip up that top nice and firm and no leaking can happen. And on your baggie, I would like you to draw, if you have a permanent marker, I'd like you to draw the sun so we can remember evaporation. And then I want you to draw a little arrow to the clouds to remember condensation. And then down here, I want you to draw an arrow to the water so that we remember precipitation and collection. Then I want you to take this baggie and take a little piece of tape, and I want you to hang it on your window. When you hang it on your window, it's going to get really nice and heated up from the sunshine, and then you will get to see how some of those droplets start coming up, and they start evaporating, and they start gathering together, and then they start precipitating, coming back down in the rain. So I'm going to take and hang this one on my window, and I'll do my experiment with you, boys and girls, right here in the middle of my window. And we'll get a chance to look at our own water cycle experiment. So boys and girls, please remember with me today that God is the one who made the rain. We're thankful for rain to water our earth, and the rain and the water that He gives us that we can enjoy. So today, boys and girls, no matter what the weather, I want you to give praise and glory to God for all that He gives us in His nature. Thanks for listening today. Bye-bye.